Hello, listeners. It's Gunter Swoboda here with some exciting news. We're on the lookout for sponsors to join us on our incredible journey with Inspired Change with Gunter. If your organisation cares deeply about meaningful conversations around masculinity, self development, and mental health, we'd love to partner with you. Our podcast has a wonderful, dedicated audience committed to personal growth and positive social change. By sponsoring Inspired Change with Gunter, your brand will connect with listeners who truly value thoughtful discussion and support initiatives that promote real transformation. We're incredibly proud to be ranked number one in Australia and number 5 in the USA on FeedSpot's top men's mental health podcasts. For more information on how to become a sponsor, please reach out to Miranda Spiegner Sapon, our showrunner and executive producer. We'd love to explore how we can work together to inspire change. Now, thank you for your continued support, and let's keep inspiring change together.
You're listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. To guide us through the intricacies and intersections of emotions, relationships, and male identity is renowned psychologist, author, and speaker Gunter Swoboda. This is Inspire Change.
Before I begin the actual podcast, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, who are the traditional custodians of the land on which I work. I would also like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. I'm your host. Welcome everybody to another episode of Inspired Change with Gunter. I'm your host, and today I want to tackle something that I've witnessed in boardrooms, in businesses, essentially any group where men have dominated for decades. And what I'm going to be talking about is the issue of when traditional masculine norms go unchecked in the workplace. And more importantly, what happens to teams, leadership and culture when we don't pause to reflect on the patriarchal assumptions that shape our daily interactions. Now, as I've said before, patriarchal values are deeply, deeply steeped into our cultural fabric. Now, to help do this, I'm drawing on Patrick Lencioni's 5 dysfunctions of a team. Now, it's a widely respected model in leadership development. But I want to take it a bit further, because what I see and what Making Good Men Great addresses is how each of these dysfunctions are quietly amplified by traditional masculine norms that prioritize control over connection, performance over presence, and ego over empathy. So today, I'm going to walk through all 5 dysfunctions and unpack how patriarchy and inherited masculine conditioning sit behind walls that make teams fragile, and how we can begin to dismantle them. So Lencioni talks about the first level of the pyramid as the absence of trust. And this equates in many respects to the patriarchal fear of vulnerability. And I want to start by acknowledging that trust doesn't just appear. It gets trained out of us, especially under the influence of traditional masculine values. Growing up male in a patriarchal culture meant one thing: never show weakness. Keep it tight, don't let anyone in too far, and maintain control at all times. And that carries into the workplace. In fact, it's nurtured into the workplace. It shows up as defensiveness, silence, detachment, I remember very early on my career sitting back, not speaking up when I felt something was wrong because I didn't want to feel vulnerable. So the other part to that was then, wearing the strong leader mask when actually I needed was support or clarity or a hard conversation. In Making Good Men Great, I help men recognise this as a relational trauma, not just a bad habit. Patriarchy conditions us to distrust openness and to see it as a dangerous or emasculating thing. So here's the truth. Trust only grows when and where vulnerability is welcomed, not punished. So if there's no trust in your team, look first at how men have been taught to perform in vulnerability. And ask, what would it take to create a space where presence is more valued than posturing? Lencioni's second dysfunction is a fear of conflict. Now, this might sound counterintuitive. Aren't men supposed to be confrontational, assertive, aggressive, straight shooters? Sure. But that's what patriarchal mythology tells us. But in reality, most men were never taught how to engage in conflict relationally, logically, and assertively. We often resort to aggression more than assertion. We've also been told that the whole process is about winning, or if you can't win, how to withdraw. Now that's not conflict, that's domination or avoidance, and both are deeply shaped by traditional masculine norms and values. I've been in rooms where men call themselves direct but actually bulldoze anyone who disagrees. They don't listen. They don't want to hear what the other person has to say. I've also been in meetings where no one says what they actually think because they're afraid of being humiliated or dismissed. Remember my experience. Now, Making Good Men Great reframes conflict as something inherently relational and, in fact, ethical. Conflict is how we test connection as well, not breaking it. But to do that, we have to help men tolerate emotional exposure. We have to retrain our nervous system that's been taught to interpret disagreement as a threat. If you want to think about that from a neuroplasticity point of view, if there's conflict, fight, flight, freeze activates. And a lot of us as men in conflict freeze. Either that or we go on the attack. But more often than not, we freeze. Now, until we reframe and rewire ourselves, then teams will keep avoiding conflict, or ultimately mishandling it through patriarchal power plays, one-upmanship. So, the third on the list is a lack of commitment. Now, I've seen this play out again and again in male-dominated teams. People show up physically, but they're not there emotionally. They do the tasks, say the right words, but they're just not in it. And often this is read as apathy, but it's not. In many cases, what it is fear. Patriarchy teaches men to avoid emotional investment because investment means risk of failure, of rejection, of looking foolish. It's safer to float, stay disengaged, keep your options open. And you can particularly see this in the political arena and the corporate arena. I remember early in my career feeling that impulse. Don't care too much. Don't show your cards. Don't commit unless it's guaranteed to work. Now, that didn't apply to my work with my clients, but it's certainly at times early on in my career worked in the sort of multidisciplinary team environment where I was very young. I felt very vulnerable. And so I wasn't going to expose too much and put too much on the table. Now, what we need to remember is that this is a mindset which is a cultural artifact of traditional masculine values. It's not natural, it's learnt. In Making Good Men Great, I bring men back to a place where commitment means presence, not perfection. Where showing up fully is the point, not the risk. When men stop measuring everything through the lens of performance and start relating from authenticity, teams shift, and they do so quickly. Lencioni's next part of the pyramid is the avoidance of accountability. Now, this one sits at the heart of patriarchal dysfunction, because patriarchy gives men status and power without always teaching emotional responsibility. Think about it. How many boys are raised to lead, provide, protect, but are never taught how to apologise, to acknowledge harm, to repair? Accountability under patriarchy is seen as a weakness, an admission of guilt, a vulnerability to be exploited. But true, real accountability is actually a sign of strength. It's ethical, relational strength. And this is what I push in Making Good Men Great. Accountability, not as a punitive measure, but as a conscious relational practice. A man who can name his impact, even when it isn't intentional, and take action to make things right, that man begins to lead with integrity. But we don't really get there unless we dismantle the patriarchal association between apology and shame. So remember, accountability is not about punishment. It's about repair. And it's a leadership muscle we can't really afford to ignore. So the final dysfunction in Lencioni's model is inattention to results. And this is where patriarchal conditioning really shows its teeth. In many male-coded workplaces, the result is status. It's being right. It's being first. It's looking good, even when the team is faltering. So you're not actually then really part of a team, are you? Now, I've watched this play out in organisations where men were more focused on credit than on connection, more driven by the optics rather than by the outcomes. It's not that people don't care there, it's that we're sort of conditioned to believe that winning was more important than belonging. In Making Good Men Great, we worked to shift that completely. We asked, what are you building? Who are you building it with? And will it matter 10 years from now? Because when traditional masculine norms hijack our motivation, we forget the why. We chase ego metrics instead of shared purpose. And in that context, everyone loses, even the men trying to win. So let's bring this home. Lencioni's model offers a roadmap of dysfunction. But if we want to change the culture in our teams, we have to go deeper. We have to name the root systems, traditional masculine norms and patriarchal assumptions. And they are often invisibly guiding behaviour, blocking connection and undermining trust. That is at the heart of making good men great. Because I'm not just interested in helping men lead. I'm interested in helping men lead differently through presence, ethics, and relational accountability. And that's how we change the workplace. Now, consider politics. It is just, in essence, another workplace. But look at the problems that we have there. So we want to broaden the workplace out into all those activity centres that we engage with. Now that's how we build teams that last. And that's how we move beyond dysfunction. Not just in business, but in ourselves. So thanks for listening. If this resonated with you, share it. And if you're ready to bring this conversation into your leadership, your team, and your organisation, reach out. Patrick Lencioni did a marvellous job with the 5 dysfunctions of a team. But I believe firmly that we can deepen the model by creating a synthesis between the 5 dysfunctions and his work and making good men great. So until next time, the next podcast, the next encounter, I'm Gunter. This is Inspired Change with Gunter, and I want you to stay grounded, stay relational, and keep disrupting the patterns that no longer serve. So until next time, this is me signing off.
Greetings and gratitude. Devana here. This week, we would like to bring attention to our neighbor listeners north of us in Canada, particularly all of you in Vancouver, British Columbia, Montreal, Quebec, Toronto, Ontario, and Halifax, Nova Scotia. Congratulations! Canada is back on the top 10 global listeners list. Thank you to each and every listener as you contributed to sliding Canada back in at number 10. We appreciate every one of you and are grateful for your likes, shares, follows, and subscribes, but most of all, for you continuing to inspire positive social change.
Love to hear from you. And if you're interested, please check out my work on www.gunterswoboda.com or www.goodmengreat.com.
Thank you for listening to Inspire Change, a broadcast that strives to educate, motivate, and empower men to challenge traditions of masculinity. For more information on the Making Good Men Great movement, or for individual or group coaching sessions with Gunter, visit goodmengreat.com.